How's it going, guys? Tay here with the Division Three Diaries page on Instagram. Here with another episode of the podcast, starting a new series. Today, we're going to be interviewing Coach Kris Susak from the Milwaukee School of Engineering. We're going to get to talk to her, ask her some questions. So it's going to be a great episode. We're going to see how it goes. But yeah, we're going to get right into it. There we go. Okay, I think it's recording. Perfect. All right, guys, we're back here with the podcast. Today, we're joined by Kris Susak, head coach of the Milwaukee School of Engineering. We're going to ask her some questions, get into the depth of her first season, how it felt coaching the Raiders of the Milwaukee School of Engineering, and kind of just a quick recap of the season and how she felt about it. But the first thing I do want to ask you, Coach Susak, if I do know you play Division One volleyball at South Dakota, and now you're coaching Division Three. So the big question I have is there any real main difference besides, I'd say, like level of play, like schedules, just overall vibes that you can see? Obviously, might be terms of era, like playing versus coaching might be a little different, but just terms of division itself, is there anything that's like majorly different?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I would say main differences between D1 and D3, obviously, aside from playing versus coaching, just the level of play, the intensity, obviously, which comes with just, pure athleticism and things like that, and height and vertical and all that good stuff. But I would say the time commitment is definitely the main difference between the two, just because at the Division One level, I mean, it's really a full-time job. You're going through it and you're putting in at least 40 hours a week, which I will say we've definitely kind of adapted to more of that intensity level with me, having that experience. But I would say definitely like during season, it's a full-time job. You're waking up at, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning for lifting and practice before class. You're going to class and then have another 2.5, 3 hour practice after those wrap up. So it's definitely during the season it's crazy to say the least. But I would say in addition to that, just having less of a commitment during the summer for D3 just because we aren't allowed any contact during the summer versus at the Division One level I mean, at that point it was more voluntary, but at that point, like everyone wanted to be there, so we all put in the hours during summer and then during the off season, so our non-traditional season, which we are in right now, just at D3 we get allotted 24 contact dates for the entire semester. There are some different constraints to work with in that regard, but yeah, at D1 we had a few weeks of 8 hours a week. And then after that, I believe it moved up to around 20 hours a week. But yeah, just I would say the main difference is really just that time commitment piece.
That makes total sense. I remember there was that whole thing I had to be debriefed on when I worked with the Sage team in Albany, because
Okay.
I had to be debriefed on like what the time constraints were, contact period, all that. But then we switched it, so I was a volunteer, so it didn't really matter. But they still figured I should be debriefed on all of that. But you mentioned the time constraints and kind of that, I guess, constraint is in the name. But in your first year at the Milwaukee School of Engineering, what were some like major speed bumps, kind of going off of that time constraint thing, like in terms of scheduling, roster holes, maybe like you didn't have a position filled, so you had to move people around, games in terms of like you know, I guess the dates of the games, how that might interfere with a personal schedule or like a team schedule. So like what
Yeah.
just kind of like what were the major speed bumps in the season?
I will say I was expecting a lot more speed bumps as I went, and I am very fortunate that that wasn't necessarily the reality. I took over a little over a year ago, so February 18th was my first day with MSOE last year. And I will say just we share an arena with men's and women's basketball and men's volleyball who are all in season for the winter and spring sports. So it was a little challenging at first to get gym space. So our first spring season, we were practicing essentially all of our contact days at 6 a.m., which I think I was more excited for just because I am much more of a morning person than I am an afternoon/nighttime person. So our options were 6 a.m. or 9 p.m. And I looked at the team and I'm like, I promise you guys, you want me to be in the gym with you at 6 a.m. versus 9 p.m. Um, This year we had a little more flexibility with that just because I had been around for that extra year, and we were able to, finagle with the other sports and get our schedule set a little bit earlier on, which was definitely nice. But aside from that, I would say just building trust between coaches and players was huge, and not necessarily a speed bump, but just something that, going in, I knew would be something that we needed to consistently work on just because I took over this roster of 24 and I did not recruit a single one of them. So I think for them it was just having that reassurance of like, Coach Kris and her staff, like we want you here. So really just I think having those sometimes tough conversations in terms of, if I didn't want you here, you wouldn't be here and trusting in that fact because if you don't have that trust in your coach and if I don't have that trust in my players, it makes for a really rocky path. But I will say again, we've had those conversations and we're in a really good place right now. I think everyone that's on the roster is excited about the fall season, excited about just the future of Raider volleyball as a whole. So yeah, as much as it was, a speed bump, it definitely got us out on the other side in a better place than we were.
I definitely get the gym th time. So all my roommates at Sage were they were all on the men's volleyball team.
Okay.
And they started their practices for most of the season had been in the heat of basketball season, like conference title coming conference tournament
Yep.
coming up. So they'd be like I'd be walking back from like hanging out with friends and they'd be leaving for practice at like 9 and I'd be like, "Where you going?" They're like, "Practice." I'm like, "Oh."
It's brutal.
Yeah, one of my it took a toll on them in terms of like because they would have a 9 p.m. practice and then the next day they would have to get on a bus at 8 a.m., 7 a.m. So
Yep.
I definitely I definitely get the sharing gym time.
Yes,
Um
it is. I mean, I think that's just kind of part of the D3 division is really just, making the most of the opportunities that you have. And for us, it was trying to manage gym time, but we made it work.
I mean, hey, I mean, getting in the gym is getting in the gym. You
Absolutely.
can't complain about that. But it's kind of speaking of the roster. I know I sent you a list of questions, so this is you obviously know this one's coming up. Emma Schatzsnyder, I don't know how to pronounce her name.
Yes, that is
And
correct.
I was just wondering if you could speak on her role. I mean, she had some incredible games from this past season. The one I remember is the Westminster game. I think she had like 20 kills, with only like one or two errors.
Yeah,
So I was just wondering if, because obviously I feel like she's got to be one of the role models of the team, despite only being like what, a sophomore,
she is a
freshman.
sophomore. Yes.
But I know she's an all-conference player. She obviously has an insane amount of talent. I was wondering if you could speak on her specific kind of role and how other players look at her, because
Yeah.
obviously she is one of the better players on the team, just statistics wise. Just kind of eliminating any skill, any personality, just statistics wise. Obviously, she's up there. I was
For
just wondering
sure.
if you could speak on kind of her.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, aside from stats, the girl for this last 2024 season had 300 kills, 326 digs, 40 aces, and was scoring over 4 points a set and doing it all at a very high level. And to have a player like Emma on the team is huge for us. Not only is she, tall and physical, but she is very smart when it comes to playing volleyball, and she's able to be very effective when she is in the front row. We used her quite a bit in the back row as well, just because she reads the court really well. She has a very high volleyball IQ, and she's honestly she's very fun to coach. I think her and I see the game in a very similar light, just in terms of we're both very competitive and we want to win. We will do whatever it takes to win, and I think she definitely has that mindset. And I mean, this girl she's a workhorse. She is in the gym all the time, and I mean, she's had many nagging injuries throughout her, year and a half, 2 years, but she's determined to be on the court. So she's doing whatever it takes. She sees our trainer. I don't even know how many times a week, but she's in there. I swear every time I go into the training room, she's sitting there doing something. And yeah, she just has that will to win, which is something that can't necessarily be coached or be taught. It's just something innate inside of you. And she and I have that. We share that. She was one of our captains this season and is definitely just a leader on the court. And people look to her in those clutch moments to do something positive with the ball. And I think she does that. And I love coaching her. I think she's, again, just a competitor. She wants to get better. And I think I've looked at her multiple times. I'm like, Emma, like, you're a phenomenal player right now. I mean, to be first team all conference your sophomore year is no small thing, but just trust the process and trust that I'm going to do everything to get you to where I see your potential is. And I know that she's barely scratching the surface right now. I think if we can fix a few small technique things, we're going to be, I mean, she's going to be looking at, all American, not just all conference. So definitely excited to get back in the gym. We're currently on spring break. So I'm excited to finish out our spring season and then eyes focused towards fall.
I mean, I'm looking at her schedule stats right now, and the one that's sticking out to me is the single set she played against Maranatha Baptist. The six
Hmm.
kills, 750, and 7 digs in one. That's incredible. The game right after, Mount Mary, one set, 7 kills, 9 attempts, 778, 3 digs. I mean, I'd probably put that up with an extra 4 hour errors in a 5 set match. So I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah,
But kind of,
she's definitely she's a key player for us. And yeah, I mean, we've tried to rely on her less just because, we don't want to be predictable at the net, but we do definitely take advantage of the talent that she possesses.
I mean, hey, even if you're predictable, if you're unstoppable, what are you gonna do?
I mean, you can't
Um,
argue with that.
so kind of speaking of her, I'm sure she's a player that when other teams are looking at film, she's like the number one. We gotta cover this girl. But like
Yep.
going back to your season and all of your opponents, just in general, is there any like team, I should say, or player where you were watching film and you're like, oh my goodness, like we have to cover everything because like for example like when I was at Sage we did film most of our teams there might have been two but there was mainly one player where it's just like you have to watch them but was there any team where even like you were looking at the libero and it's like well we can't even hit there like they're just such an incredible team but any of those teams that you played this year that you were just like wow.
Yeah, I would say probably Edgewood. So they ended up winning
Mm.
conference this year. We played them first round of the conference tournament um, and lost both times. But just in watching film, I mean, they had a very um, experienced team. So when we were lining up for both those matches, I mean, they're announcing starting lineups, and for them, it's like senior and fifth year senior and junior and another senior. And for us, I mean, most of our matches, we started 4 or 5 freshmen. So to play against those teams with that experience, I think is obviously it's only going to make us better, but at the same time, like they could smell out the freshmen and they knew what would like rattle us, which again, with that experience comes those just those IQ points. So I think they were so much fun to play against. And then when we played them in the conference tournament, they played, I mean, a dang near flawless match. Like it was one of those where it's like even if we played our best match of the season, like I still don't necessarily know how that game would have ended up. Just because they do have those players with those extra years and had obviously been in those positions before. And their coach Paul, he did a phenomenal job just with the talent that he was able to bring in. And yeah, I mean they ended up winning the conference tournament. He got coach of the year, so a very respectable program. And we are actually fortunate enough to have stolen one of their middles as a coach now. So Abby Falk was one of their middles for her 5 seasons, and she reached out a few months ago and just asked because she had moved to Milwaukee if we had any opportunity to bring on another assistant. And so she's been in our gym quite a bit and is definitely proving that he trained them well and she knows what to look for and has definitely helped our middles quite a bit, which is awesome.
I mean, you gotta love to hear that, and obviously the fifth year thing was just a trend this year. Like Julianata, they had I
Yeah,
think
everyone
like
had their
five.
COVID year
Everyone
left.
was last year fully. So I mean, definitely get that. But I mean, I'm looking at your season stats. I didn't even notice this. I should have written this down, but it looks like you guys ran a 6-2 most of the season. I was
We
just one.
kind of alternated between a 6-2
Mm,
and a 5-2.
mm. So I was just wondering if that's something that you're going to continue through next season, just
Um,
based on roster, or if you're going to try to like transition more into a 5-1 with splitting time with setters, or
yeah, so I mean, come this fall, we'll have three really solid setters. And one of which will be an incoming freshman, and then we'll have a sophomore and junior. And I think based on their skill level, it's very possible that we could eventually get into a 5-1, but I'm going to be honest, I really like the 5-2 just because then you have a setter who's able to focus more on that defensive aspect, and then you still have the opportunity to have the setter be offensive in the front row. So, um, with that, I think it really depends on not only our setters, but also our right sides and those who are able to, do well on right back. I think looking ahead, it's definitely something that is a possibility, but we have not really made any decisions in that regard.
That makes total sense. Because I do know like at Sage we started out with a 5-1. We had a Division One setter come in. And then
Nice.
towards the end we just wanted to try something different, and it ended up working out both ways. So I
Gotcha.
mean, I totally get that. I figured that was just a small question I could ask. But as of my list and as of now, I only have one, I guess, major two-part question left in my notes. So it's the first part is going to be just kind of what was your favorite memory from the season? Like in terms of like was it like in a game, maybe on a bus ride, in a practice? Like I do know like one of our biggest memories at Sage was the Halloween practice. Um
Oh my goodness, our Halloween practice was so goofy. We had four girls dress up as Mount Rushmore with a giant green sheet over themselves. It was pretty funny, and I'm like, you guys get bonus points because I went to school in South Dakota. So, no, I would say my favorite season memory was definitely our win. It was a 5-set win over WLC, Wisconsin Lutheran. And it was really back and forth. So I'm pretty sure like we won the first set, they won the second, we won the third, they won fourth, and then the fifth set ended with us winning 15-13. And I mean, it was a battle through and through. And I think that was really one of the first times this season that the team like fully understood what they were capable of. And it's really easy for me to sit there and preach and be like, you guys are so much better than this. And like why, like when are you going to have the confidence in yourselves that we have in you as coaches? And I think that was really one of those first turning points for us, just because in previous seasons, I can't say that there was this much fight in them. And I think just having someone that's leading them that knows they are capable of it, I think that they really understood that they were capable of coming out of those tough matches with a win, because we had some the following or the previous fall, I was an assistant coach, and we had some losses that, we would start off really strong, and then the other team would push back, and we'd just kind of give up. And it's like, okay, how do we get out of this trend? So I would say that was definitely one of my favorite season memories. Was that 5-set win over Wisconsin Lutheran?
I mean, I had that as my win of the year for you guys. So
Yeah,
that
it
that
was it was crazy. I remember I'm sitting on the sidelines and I'm like, I'm sweating. Like I'm I'm nervous. Like it's so hard being a coach because I mean, yes, you can, call different plays and have them run different routes, but at the end of the day, like I have zero control as to what they're doing out there. So it was nerve-wracking for sure, but it was a phenomenal game for us.
I mean, and going back to the Halloween practice. So at Sage, we were like the coaches wanted to do something, but we weren't sure what. Then we decided
Yeah.
it'd be really funny if we all dressed up as a player.
Oh my
So we all
gosh.
we all picked a player. We just learned their mannerisms through a month, and it was a blast.
Oh, that's so funny.
And then
But
going off of that, kind of like I definitely get like that nerve-wracking feeling. And it's like I do know because like at the end of the season, like at Sage, we were competing for that last conference championship spot. Like we
yep.
had to win this certain game. We ended up losing that game. And it was like everyone wasn't down in the dumps. We figured out there was another way. And then we played another team right after. I think like it was the next week. And it was probably one of the best games of volleyball we had played all year. But like all the coaches were on the sideline, our hands were sweating. We were like,
Yep.
and I mean, we ended up winning in 3 sets, but still, like, no one expected that. Like, literally, we thought it was going to be one of the most intense 5-set matches. Um, the team we were playing had upset two other teams earlier in the year, so we were all very nervous. But I definitely get that. But kind of going off of the win mentality. Obviously, you said for you it was the Wisconsin Lutheran match, but is there another match that like the team itself just kind of like breathed a sigh of relief, like we can do this, like this is a season we can turn around for the best, like.
Yeah, so it was our last conference match of the season. We played Rockford, who had had um for lack of better words, a rather rocky season, and we were playing them for the final spot in the conference tournament. So Rockford was already out; they had nothing to lose, and they came out and they played like it. I mean, they played a very good match, and we were down two sets. And like I said, historically, this is a team that would have just kind of accepted defeat at that point, but we looked at them and I'm like, one of your goals for this fall season was making playoffs, and this is your time to, prove that that's still something you want and to kind of validate all of the hard work that you've put in this season. And we ended up walking out with a reverse sweep over Rockford, which was one of two this past season that we had, which is crazy to believe. I mean, reverse sweeps are quite hard to pull off. So the fact that we did it twice in a season was um, again made me sweat on the sidelines, but we did it. And I think that was I just remember walking into the huddle after Rockford, and I confirmed that the other team that we needed to lose had indeed lost. And so I looked at my like assistant coaches, and they're like, "We're in." And I turned to the team, and I was almost in tears. I'm like, "Guys, we did it!" And we all just started cheering, and it was, I mean, I have goosebumps sitting here thinking about it, but that was definitely one of those moments where it's like, yeah, like this is my team. We can do this. We did that, and we are continuing to just kind of push limits and defy the boundaries that have been set for us. And I think again with our previous records, it's really easy for people to shake us off, but I don't think they realize how committed and determined we are to continue getting better. And I mean, I have lofty goals for this coming fall, and I'm super excited just to see all the work that these girls have put in and see it, come to fruition.
I definitely I did the when we were competing for that final spot, you can go back and watch like all our because we pretty much just had home games at the end of the year. You can see
Okay.
me and then our grad assistant Adele just constantly checking my phone, refreshing
Yep.
scores, checking. So that was for sure. I definitely understand that.
Yeah,
But I'm
it's
also
it's a
noticing,
stressful place to be in, that's for sure.
yep. So I mean, you have also just one final question. I'm looking at the roster. It looks like you only had three seniors this past year. Are any of them going to be returning for fifth year? Did any of them get that appeal? Because I know you had to like
None
submit
of them
something.
will be returning. So we
Okay.
had one of those seniors actually had a career-ending injury at the beginning of the preseason. That was brutal. Um, one of those that I wouldn't wish on anyone, but the other two will be, um, I think still around, just not playing volleyball anymore.
That makes sense. But I guess other than that, like thank you for your time. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to have been here and to be the first guest. I feel so honored.
But I
Awesome.
mean, do you have anything else you want to add before I sort of end this recording?
Um, I think that's all. I think we're good.
All right, perfect. Have a great day. We'll definitely be in touch. Hope to talk soon again.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Have a good one.